How I Met Your Mother is over, but we're just getting started talking about everything that happened in the How I Met Your Mother finale. And now, here are the two guys who just are here to say that it was great. It was great. It was great. Great. It was great, Rich.
Rob, if you say it one more time, I'll believe you.
It was great. April Fools, everybody. How you doing? It's the post-show recaps live here on special coverage of the How I Met Your Mother finale here on Tuesday, April 1st, 11:10 a.m. on the East Coast, 8:10 a.m. on the West Coast. And we are here. We've got the chat room going. We've got a very good turnout for sort of an impromptu podcast here live. Rich, a lot of people want to talk about How I Met Your Mother here this morning.
Very polarizing, very polarizing. I'll be interested to hear what everyone says, and I have a preview. I think that you and I are actually going to disagree.
Whoa,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
So here we are. We are sitting Shiva here as we are mourning the loss of maybe not so much the show, but of Mrs. Ted Mosby at this hour. As many people did predict, they went through with it and they killed off the mother. And so we'll talk about everything, how they wrapped it up, because I feel like there was a lot of good here also before we sort of, like the Price is Right cliffhanger game, sort of just went off the rails there in the last couple of minutes. So chat room is going. We're taking your comments. We're taking your questions on Twitter. Use the hashtag PSRecaps and also on our YouTube channel at postshowrecaps.com/YouTube. All right. So, Rich, I mean, we sort of got it out of the way. Everybody knows the details at this point. I guess if you have the differing opinion, why don't you open things up this morning?
Okay. Well, and I guess surprisingly, but given the ending, I feel like we have to at least touch on the ending first to cover. But I was surprised. I actually didn't mind the ending at all. I mean, I felt like what a lot of people are saying is that it did feel rushed the last 5 minutes, that I wish that was the last hour. I feel like we could have, skipped one of the episodes, 2 or 3 weeks ago, had the first hour be last week's sort of cliffhanger leading up to the divorce, and then go from there. But overall, I kind of just felt like, well, yeah, that's what this show is. And I think maybe the difference is the thing that How I Met Your Mother did so well leading up to this finale was lower my expectations so well that they have been disappointing me for 9 years. So I didn't go into this like, okay, lost finale, what is the island? Here we go. I definitely went into this like, okay, bring it. All right, let's see what they're going to do. And I felt like, okay, and we'll talk more about the ending, but I would say in general, I liked the lead up to. I liked so much of what happened in the 5 years or whatever it was, however many years since the present tense. I liked a lot of what they did there. And then the ending, I would say it was intellectually satisfying, although emotionally questionable for me.
But I feel like this was like the Lost finale in some ways, because I feel like much like the Lost finale, it was like, and I'm gonna spoil Lost here. I'm sorry, everybody.
Sure.
But the stuff, and I'm not really gonna get into the details, but the stuff that took place in the Lost finale on the island, everybody agreed was perfect. Everything was perfect. With Jack and everything, they tied up everything on the island pretty much perfectly, and then the flash sideways stuff was the thing that, like, oh, what? Wait, why did they do that? Like, they could have just done the stuff on the island and the flash sideways stuff. And I kind of feel like with this, I feel like that Ted meeting the mom was beautiful. It was, I felt like it was perfect, and it was as perfect as the show has ever been. And it was as satisfying as we could have ever expected to have a meeting of the mom. And if that was the last scene in the episode, that would have been perfect. I don't even know why we had to go back to the kids. Like, if you could have just done the whole thing in voiceover, and I thought it was weird that we didn't have Saget at all in this episode.
Yes.
And we never get an explanation of that.
Right.
As much as Family Guy pointed this out a long time ago of why does Ted have a different voice in the future. Forget it. If it would have just been a voiceover of Saget and that kid's, that's How I Met Your Mother. Did you need to see the kids say anything?
Well, again, and this is the yin and yang, and we could completely derail because of how much I hated the Lost premise. I wrote an entire blog post about how much I hated the Lost finale. I disagree with you on that, but we'll save that for another day. But it goes back to that thing. Is I think that if they had just ended on the train scene, which I'm really on the line whether that would have been the right. I think if they did, it would have been great emotional closure last night, and then this morning when you asked me about it, I would have said, whatever, because we only got to meet her 21 episodes, and she was only in maybe 8 episodes. So the show was never about her. So while that scene was beautifully done, so well written, so well acted, thought they could stick the landing like that. I never thought the meeting scene would be that good. The fact that that the material, I'll save that. We'll talk about the scene itself, but I think that if they left it at that, the takeaway I would have had with the series was, well, don't really know why they spent 8 of 9 years talking about Ted effing around with his friends and other girls before talking about the mom, and the premise that they gave about how he had to be ready would have been thin. So I think I just would have walked away from the show like, nah, where at least this way I walk away from the show going, okay, I don't have the emotional closure because I don't care about him and Robin anymore, which I'm sure we'll talk. But I do feel like, well, okay, now I get it. They had a point. They saw through to its conclusion, and it gave me closure to the show.
So you feel like because the whole show was Ted telling this story, which was the roundabout way of how I get to your mother, but it's so much about Robin that you buy that he's really just setting up with the kids, that I really want to date Robin.
Yes, I absolutely bought that, especially since if it was really about the mom, it wouldn't have ended with How I Met Your Mother. It would have been, and this was our first date, and this was our wedding, and this was our bum. The premise was always to me like, how are you going to pull this off? Like, why is this after 9 years so important? So I bought it.
Well, this makes me hate Ted if that's the case, because it makes me feel like Ted was like when the mom died, and I guess we only found her name in this episode, correct?
Correct, yes.
Tracy. That when she died, it makes me feel like Ted was like, oh, okay, well, at least this is good. At least I can date Robin now, because it made me feel like that Ted really loves Robin the whole way through, and it made me feel bad for the mom.
Now that's interesting because I totally understand what you're saying, and yet I felt like I didn't have that experience at all. That I went along for the ride. That you can love more than one person in your life, and it doesn't have to be. If you love one person, you can never love again, or you didn't. So I liked the idea that he had been in love with Robin, that in the story that it was justified that they were split, that they were not supposed to be together at that time in their lives, and that he met the woman, and that if Tracy had lived, have lived with her happily ever after, but with her dying, you then had this void, and then Robin at that age, and at that point in her life, and Ted at this age, at this point in her life, was the right fit. So I bought.
Let me ask you a question. What if instead of the mom dying, couldn't Ted and Tracy have just gotten divorced? Couldn't they have just not worked out with them, and Ted is now divorced and is talking to his kids and then is going to date Robin? Like, why did they have to build this up, tell us what a perfect relationship this was, and then kill her just so Ted could date Robin? If they really, and Alan Sepinwall does the fantastic job with this, talking about how the creators of the show really painted themselves into a corner in the premiere episode by having Ted say, and that's how I met your Aunt Robin, or whatever the line is. So
yes,
we knew that they wanted Ted and Robin to get together, but they put in there that Robin was the aunt. I mean, why not? Why couldn't they have gotten around this, not by killing off the mother, by saying that it didn't work out. That's how I met your mother, but unfortunately, things don't always work out, and we got divorced. Much like Robin and Barney, it just didn't work.
Rob, have you seen this show? This is the schmaltziest, most dripping in romance and idealism schmaltzy show on television. They don't have those genetics to do that. There is no way that they could actually do a realistic landing. This show never lived in the real world. I mean, in the real world, the result would be all five of them would either be at an AA meeting or dead from alcohol poisoning. So there, I take it as absolutely that none of this makes sense, none of it's real, it's all a fairy tale because they don't know how to write realistic dialogue, they don't know how to actually do realistic closure. So I hear what you're saying, but I feel like that would have been way more of a disappointment if they had gone that way, and I'd rather the sort of romantic ridiculousness of it sort of carrying through to the very end.
Okay, let's go a couple of episodes, and Gary Dreslinski brings up something in the chat. So, if she was a placeholder, what does that make the guy who Tracy loved who died? So there was the episode, the How I Met Your Dad episode, where it was the perspective of the mother going through everything. So she went through, ironically, a somewhat similar scenario where there was a guy that she loved who was her fiance who died very tragically. And she was in mourning for however many years before she found out that she could date another guy. And then, ironically, then that guy, it didn't work out. But then the next guy, it did work out with her. But there was a scene that I always felt like was odd where she was basically asking her dead fiance for permission to love again. Now, the creators knew what was going to happen. They knew they were killing off the mother so Ted could get with Robin. Do you feel like, was that setting us up for that Ted is going to eventually be looking, not from, he doesn't ask the mom permission, he basically asks the kids for permission, but do you feel like there was a parallel between that episode that happened in the finale?
Well, I certainly had not thought of that until you brought it up, but I think it makes total sense. That I think that your instincts are dead on. That probably was them building towards this idea and setting up the idea that, there's not only one love in your life and that, you can love again following something like this. I think you're right on. Of course, what you made me think of when I said that is, what if in their head that guy was contagious and Tracy died years later from the disease she caught from that guy?
Oh, no.
Thinking.
I didn't think of that.
All right, maybe too much.
Boy, and is Ted the worst friend ever? I mean, could we have gotten a reaction from Barney on this? What do you think Barney's reaction is to Ted now dating Barney's ex-wife? Or is Ted, hey, whoever got there first, I am the true rightful person that should be with Robin?
Well, yeah, I mean, I can't, the way that they built, I did not obviously see this ending coming. I thought what they were building up to was that, Barney and Robin were not meant to be in 2015, but once Barney becomes a dad and he suddenly no longer wants to hit on girls but send them home to, change into more sensible outfits, that then they were going to come back together, Robin and Barney. So I thought that's where we were leading to. They didn't, so based on that, I can't see that Barney's going to be too happy about this happening.
Yeah, kind of. I think it's going to be a very awkward in the 2030 How I Met Your Mother reunion.
Yeah, I don't think that there's a slap infinity at that wedding.
No, that's going to be very, very weird. So Mark Slayer brings up a good point. That what about girl number 31? Okay.
Yes.
Did you find, now again, I felt like the scene with Barney and the baby at the hospital was beautiful. Beautiful and perfect. But did you find it odd that we didn't even get a face? We didn't even see the woman who is the mother of, and did she die during childbirth too? Because Barney seems to have custody of this baby. Did he marry number 31? What happened here, Rich?
Yeah, it definitely. I had the same experience, which I thought was related to just them trying to do too much in 2 episodes. But I don't know if seeing her would have helped. I don't know. I actually wondered if we were going to get a cameo like the woman who played the daughter when they first shot the reaction shots in 2005 was going to come back and play number 31. It probably would have been cheap.
Whoa.
It would have been fun just to see, like, hey, look at that. Hey,
I guess then they're even for that whole marrying Robin
exactly.
thing.
Then it all would have worked out. So it was definitely odd that we never saw, but less so, it was more so odd, that there wasn't a conversation that she doesn't want to keep the baby or that he's gonna adopt the baby based on his reaction before seeing the baby couldn't possibly have been realistically set up. So very sort of rushed through, although I'll give him that scene with the baby was so good. As a new dad, Rob, do you wish that that's how you had felt when Dom was born?
Yes, I did say he can have everything that I have.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't have as much as Barney.
Yeah, it probably makes sense, yeah.
I mean, really, but for what? If for all intents and purposes, like, shouldn't there just have been a baby left at Barney's doorstep? I mean, I feel like this is very muddy. Where is the mother of this kid?
Yes, and they didn't ever specifically state that he's alone, so he could be with Mum 31. But then she's never in any scenes, and she's not part of the story. So I guess we're to assume that he's a single dad. So, and while I agree with everything you're saying, I did like that the closure to the Barney character that we knew and loved before the whole Robin nonsense. It was almost impossible that he hadn't gotten women pregnant. So I do like that at least we sort of emotionally tie up the Playboy character with, and then he gets a girl pregnant and he's got to raise a kid. So I did kind of like that, broadly speaking.
Am I alone on this, that I really dislike Robin?
I like Robin. I've always liked Robin.
Yeah, I just kind of feel like, I feel like I blame her for the whole marriage not working with Barney. I blame her for it not working with Ted the first time. I mean, the reason why her and Ted broke up was she thought Ted was proposing to her, and he wasn't, and she acted like a real jerk about it. If it wasn't for her screwing things up with Ted, she could have had a happily ever after with Ted. But, she had to screw it up. She had to go off and do God knows what, and she had to then sleep around with Barney. And then I feel like she sort of, was, put her career ahead of her marriage to Barney. I feel like it wasn't because of Barney that it didn't work. I feel like it was Robin's fault that marriage didn't work either.
Well, and I may be remembering wrong because I know Ted and Robin got together and broke up a couple of times. I thought ultimately the deal killer was the fact that Ted wanted kids and Robin did not want kids before we found out she couldn't have kids. And my memory was that ultimately that was the final straw, that they just couldn't reconcile, and even Ted understood, even though he couldn't let her go, that he understood they couldn't be together because he wanted kids and she didn't, and that was going to be an issue for them. So and maybe I'm forgetting it, but there was something else you said I was just going to mention, and I can't.
Do you think that the Ted and Robin thing is going to work out in the year 2030?
Oh,
I think Robin thinks she wants Ted, but ultimately she's going to get bored of Ted, and she's going to. I don't think it's going to work out.
Oh, I think that Robin is probably at a point in her life where she's very ready to settle. So she's gonna compromise. She's gonna settle, and you know what? It'll be platonic relationship. They'll be more like sort of wedding buddies than they will be sort of soulmates. So yeah, I think that she's just like me going into this thing, her expectations have been lowered by this point in the process, and she's like, all right, I guess I'm with Ted. Nah, all right, let's do it.
Yeah. All right, let's take some of the questions. Okay, and let's jump into. Okay, here's from Emily says 29. What is the point of deciding a whole season or dedicating a whole season to Barney and Robin's wedding just so that they are going to split? All right, Rich, we spent 23 episodes or whatever, however many, at Barney and Robin's wedding, and then by 10 minutes into the finale, we find out Barney and Robin are divorced.
Yes. Interesting, because this has been a common complaint I've been reading everywhere, and structurally it makes total sense to ask that question and to be frustrated by that, but it didn't bother me at all because I never felt like these 21 episodes were about Robin and Barney getting married. I felt like that was a device to start wrapping up 9 years worth of storyline. So I liked it. I would rather have had this, knowing that they were going to get divorced, than just 21 episodes at McLaren's, and then we're here, and then we're like, I think that to do something high concept was the right way to go. Obviously, I would rather he just had met the mom in episode 1 and we had 21 seasons of him being with and we'll talk. I want to talk about the mom specifically in a second, but yeah, it didn't bother me because I just thought, well, it's a framing device, and it got us. It pushed through so many storylines, almost least of which was Barney and Robin themselves. So, and I'm so happy that they got divorced, that it didn't actually work out, that it didn't bother me.
Okay, let's take a question from Anna J, who wants to know. Wasn't a major theme of the show how Robin and all of his other ex-girlfriends were wrong for Ted? How can they end up together when a majority of the show tried to convince us that they weren't right for each other?
Well, and again, I'll have to look. There's so much good stuff happening in the chat room. I can't follow along while we talk because I want to see if someone remembers this. My memory, as I said, Robin and Ted was always not that they were incompatible, but that they just had different life goals involving children. So I thought it was circumstances that ultimately split them apart, but I could be wrong about that.
Okay, well,
but go ahead.
Right, I have a question actually about that.
Okay.
From Jessica Leese, my partner on Amazing Race podcast on Rob has a website. She says Robin and Ted broke up because they wanted different things out of life. The moral of the story then becomes that happy endings happen when the lady decides to want what the man wants, and it effectively vilifies Robin for wanting a career instead of a family/traditional monogamy by making her evidently unhappy and friendless as a result. What do you think of that? If we were to tell the story from Robin's point of view, hey, I'm Robin. I'm career driven. I want certain things. I'm not willing to, settle down, and I feel like kids are going to stop me, and I feel like, having a husband is going to stop me, and my career is first, and my friends, that they are willing to make sacrifices, but I am not. I am fiercely independent, Robin.
That is an interesting take on things. I didn't have that experience with Robin because I feel like I've gotten to know a number of people who are very successful in their careers, and their toll on their personal life is very, very extreme. So I feel like that was a very real take on things, and I feel like she was right in not being with Ted for those reasons, that if she wanted those goals, that she was right to do them. So I that part I don't know about, but I understand her point was interesting, that they're kind of setting up that you can't be happy until you sort of settle down with a man and kids. So I don't think that was their intention. I didn't take it that way, but it certainly makes sense. I think you're right that inadvertently that could have been the takeaway from it.
Yeah. So it's an interesting point. It really is to say. Could Robin have it all or not? That's really what it comes down to. And should we look at her differently because of her goals versus the goals of the other characters?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't touch on it, but I also don't buy the idea that post Barney, give her a year, 2 years to mourn the loss of Barney, that one of the most successful, attractive news anchors on television isn't dating constantly. The idea that they're sort of painting her as alone during that whole time wouldn't track with, one of the most eligible bachelorettes in all of New York City also being one of the most attractive women in New York City, not dating on a regular basis. That I don't really buy.
I mean, could somebody who is the comparison that we could say that Robin's career is she Anderson Cooper?
That's a good question. I wish I watched
cable news. Is it possible? Would it be possible for give me the person who is Greta Van Susteren. I mean, who is the person that? I mean, I don't know anything about their personal lives, but is it possible? I mean, how grueling could their schedule be?
Yeah, no, it's got to be. It's a lot of running around, a lot of last minute calls. Yeah, yeah. I don't know enough about network news to even pull the right person for this, but it doesn't make sense that she's alone, given that who she is in New York City at that time. But
Okay.
hard to say.
All right, so let's take some more questions here. This is from Anna J. She wants to know, does the finale negatively affect your view on the series and the characters as a whole?
See, I would say no, because and I know that this is what everyone has been saying, and Sepinwall, great writer, but boy was he pissed last night.
He was very pissed.
Very pissed. He sort of said this. I think that it's the opposite. I think that we have season 9 so firmly in our head that it makes us think that, but I think if we're going back and we're watching season 2 with Victoria, or we're watching the Stella years, I think it's going to go, like, just the knowledge that, oh, he actually does end up with Robin, I think it's going to sit well with us, especially I thought one of the most important episodes back in season 5, maybe, when Victoria comes back and says, the only reason it didn't work out with us is because you're still in love with Robin. And it really set up this idea that Robin was the one. So I would say, opposite of that, I think we're going to look back and go, oh, he does end up with Robin in the long run. Okay, now these episodes make more sense to me.
Megan Z, she wants to know, if we're talking about the winners and losers of the show by Marshall and Lily getting a predictable ending, were they the losers of the finale because nobody is talking about them?
Yeah, they definitely sort of painted themselves in a corner by making them. We knew that he was going to be a judge. We knew that they were going to have 3 kids. So there was really, I thought, nowhere to go. Interesting to the comment you read about Robin and the female character, that Lily's career is never mentioned in the last 6 episodes, and I didn't think about that until we were talking about female characters on the show, that we find all about how he goes on to be a judge and stuff, but I guess we're to assume that Lily never became a successful whatever the heck she was doing with art, and that she's just a stay-at-home mom, and that's how she's happy. So interesting. Maybe these guys are a little sexist.
Carlos V1031 wants to know, do you feel like the showrunners were too set in their ways when it came to ending the series the way they thought it would start, instead of molding their finale based off of 9 years of character development? A lot of characters went back into season 1 mode. So in Alan Sepinwall's article, he talks about how the finale of the show, I guess, was shot after the 2nd season or whatever.
Middle of the 2nd season, when they were afraid that they might get canceled. Yeah,
they were afraid they were going to get canceled, and they were afraid also that the kids were going to get old, and that was going to be a problem. Like Bob Saget doing a voiceover for 9 years, all of a sudden he's Ted. Like we would have, if they had got different kids to play the kids in the last scene, like anybody, like we would have been like, oh my God, what, it wasn't even the same kids. Like that would have been so bad. Anyway, do you feel like that they were so set in their ways of Alan Sepinwall? In his article, he describes that Carter and Bays, that's the 2 guys?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That he describes them giving each other an Infinity 5 when they came up with that maybe the mom is dead, so Ted can marry Robin. Do you feel like that they were inflexible in what they wanted to do?
Well, yes and no. So, and this has been touched on a little bit other places, because I think that one of the biggest challenges going into season 9 that everybody had, and we've talked about this for everyone who watched the show, talked about this for every year, was the casting of the mom. That with all of this build-up, and we were saying this after season 2, that with all of this build-up, how could they possibly cast somebody who's going to live up to our expectations? And will they do stunt casting? Will it be a major star? Will it be a nobody? And so I think that they came up with this ending with that real fear that no matter who we get, the audience isn't going to ultimately be happy because we set an expectation that can't be met. So with that in mind, and even then the casting of Christina Milioti, but not actually shooting episodes with her yet, it totally makes sense that they felt like this is not going to be the big emotional payoff that everybody wants, because we can't make her as great as everybody wants her to be. So we're going to lead to this Robin thing, which is going to make the fans happy, because that's going to be what we want. And then the thing that nobody banked on was Christina Milioti was actually better than anyone ever expected and was fantastic, and it was exactly what we had wanted from day one, which was great for the show to keep us through season 9, but made this pre-scripted ending suddenly not quite work. And who knows how late in the season, because they're writing and shooting way earlier than we're seeing them air. At what point in the series did they realize, uh-oh, we might have a problem here, the fans like her too much, and could they possibly course correct? So, and I think maybe they should have at the last minute, but I don't know how far in they were before they're like, oh, but we've already set up the she's dying, so now how do we unring that bell? And I guess the question then I go is that they just said, let's just end on the train and let's make that the final scene, and that's How I Met Your Mother. Would we have been more furious that they never paid off this idea that the mom is going to die? And if the mom had died, but that was How I Met Your Mother, we still would have been left like, but that was a bummer, so why'd I watch that? So I think they did make a mistake, but I can understand why they made that mistake.
You know, going back to, okay, let's go to the year 2020. And we have this very long engagement between Ted and Tracy, which they didn't really ever give us a great answer of why, you know, they couldn't have gotten married at some point, that she wanted to get married in a castle or whatever. But somehow they never, in 5 years or whatever, they never were able to figure out a time to get married. So then all of a sudden, I'm starting to think, okay, well, the longer they're not married, the greater the possibility that maybe Tracy's mom didn't get to Ted's wedding, because I'm saying maybe this is how we're going to, okay, they're just going to make us think that, okay, the line of what kind of mom can go to her daughter's wedding. I'm like, okay, well, maybe if Ted and Tracy aren't even married yet, maybe this is how we explain this, and then it's like, well, okay, well, they were just messing with us. But
right.
Sure enough, then, why did they get married on a random Thursday? What was the point of that?
Made no sense. I mean, yeah, and this is classic How I Met Your Mother storytelling. We're setting up that there's this big delay, and then there's no payoff whatsoever, other than they wanted to show the scene of them getting married at that point in the episode, so there was a contrivance that it got delayed, and it made no sense whatsoever.
I think it was more that, like, we just finished this whole big wedding episode in the last thing, and it was like, well, we can't do, like, another big wedding episode where now we have to bring back every single person in their lives. So let's just make them get married at the Justice of the Peace on a Thursday, and then we don't have to explain why every single person in the show doesn't come back again like they did in the last episode.
Right, yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah, so... yeah, and then they're hanging out at McLaren's and everything, and I just felt like there was this line that says, you know, Ted, it's bad luck to see the bride in her dress. Was that, were they trying to tell us that she died because Ted saw her in her wedding dress?
He may be the Grim Reaper, maybe. Yeah.
I mean, that to me, when she's like, "Oh, Ted, don't you know it's bad luck?" And like, that was like, "Oh no, this is very ominous to me."
I didn't pick up on that.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. And then, do you wonder if Ted and Tracy ever had a conversation that Victoria and Ted had about Robin?
Well, I think no, because I think that Ted was so in love with Tracy. They painted that with such a thick brush that he was so in love with her that I'm guessing that never came up. Always a little weird that she was so comfortable with Robin being one of the friends, especially the fact that they had gone out for so long. So very weird. Now, how he explained to Tracy that in the closet we've got the snowshoes, we've got the old tennis rackets, we've got some sweaters, and we've got a purple trombone just in case I decide to get back with Robin after you die. That would be a hard one to explain.
It was blue. It's a blue trombone or whatever.
Blue trombone, yes. So while I loved that callback as a great kind of tying us right back to the pilot, how you explain to your wife that you're keeping a blue trombone, which was the symbol of your love for another woman, that's a tough one. Maybe that was in a separate public storage unit that she didn't know about.
Yeah. Don Ames says, Rob, it appears that everyone involved with the show has not commented since the finale. No reactions to the outcry, etc. What are your thoughts on keeping quiet now versus responding to the fans immediately? This is tough because I feel like that a lot of times these show creators come up with, these high concept finales, and typically people are having the same reaction that at least that I'm having, and I feel like a lot of other people are having. What is the best? Should the creators just shut up and never talk about it?
I would say definitely not say anything right away. Absolutely. I think that, whether we love it, whether we hate it, the idea is that the show should stand on its own. Pre-internet age, we never got to go back and find out what what Alan Alda thought of the MASH finale, and I think it's just you let it just sit, you let it be. Now this is such a negative reaction. I'm sure the head of Corpcom at CBS is having a big conversation about the How I Met Your Father pilot and saying,
yeah.
boy, this is not good. This is not how we wanted to tee up. I mean, I do think that the reaction to this episode probably will end up killing that pilot as a series order, but it's so early to say. I mean, people's reactions might very mellow over time and then go, well, all right, I'll take the ride again. But yeah, I think for anyone to come out and defend it now would just further flame the people who are mad. I think you just got to sort of let it go.
Yeah, Alan Sepinwall said, when they do press tour for How I Met Your Father, if it does get picked up as a series, every question is going to be like, okay, so is the father dead in the future? And how do we know that he's not dead? Is it really going to be another guy that they're painted themselves into a corner? This was a terrible move for these guys.
Right, exactly. By the way, I'm just noticing the chat room is correctly screaming at me because it's a blue French horn. I don't know where I got purple trombone or whatever I said, but of course it was a blue French horn. But shame on me for not getting that right.
Yes. Okay, so many other things to still touch on. Yukon R says, so the actors who played the kids knew the ending of the show for all these years? Yeah, I guess they were. It must have been killing them.
Yeah. More killing them that they didn't get any screen time. In all these years, they never got asked to come back and play a role. You think that they would have had some role at some point as an acknowledgement of what do you think they got paid? $1,500 or $2,000 for a couple of days of shooting, and they get used for 9 years. Although I wonder if they get paid if in every episode they appear in, even if they only shot in those first shot over the course of a day or two. That's an interesting question. I don't know the answer.
Okay. Here's an article that Taylor Cotter sent across my desk this morning. So there was an interview done with Kristen Milioti recently, dated March 10th, where the Kristen Milioti debunked the recent theory that her character will die in the finale of How I Met Your Mother. When asking about the growing speculation, the actress told The Hollywood Reporter, "That's insane. There are some crazy conspiracy theories which really make me love the fans more. That is so crazy."
Crazy. She didn't say that's wrong or that's untrue. She said that's crazy.
And it was.
She was not wrong.
Yes, it was crazy.
This certainly happens, when an actor or actress does not like the creative direction that the writers take, and they have to play the party line. They can't say, "Hey, I'm with you guys. This is a terrible ending." So this may have been her playing it politically correct.
Oh my goodness. Rich, where does this rank for you? A lot of people are asking in the pantheon of controversial series finales.
Well, I mean, again, I hated the Lost finale. I hated everything about it because the central question of Lost was, what is the island? And they didn't answer it. They just added a new question at the beginning of the last season, only about the Flash sideways, only to answer that. But I think that they completely dodged the bullet. So, so I would say that's at the bottom for me.
Okay, Rich, the island was, there was this light that was in the island.
Yeah.
Good and evil.
Yeah. Yeah, it's still not doing it for me. Sorry, it still wasn't doing it for me. And in a way, I would say, I know this is going to be like, people are going to think I'm crazy for saying this. I liked this finale better than I liked the Sopranos finale because even if we don't like that he's with Robin, at least we have the closure. The series has a complete, beginning, middle, and end to it. So I would say I liked it better than Sopranos, even though Sopranos was great until the very end. This sort of just cutting off of just up and it's over was not emotionally satisfying for me. So I liked it better than that. And then, of course, nothing can touch the finale. And I didn't see Dexter, by the way. I know other people are missing Dexter. I didn't see that. But nothing can touch Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad was just gorgeous, just a gorgeous ending. Best finale ever still has to be Newhart. So you can't. But that's a comedy. That's in a different way. So you can't touch that.
Are there any other comedies that have a controversial ending like this?
Well, Seinfeld was, I thought, a very bad finale. I thought this was a better finale than Seinfeld. I think that I will look back and have a better. I mean, obviously, Seinfeld's one of the greatest shows in television, but I thought that was a better finale than that. I thought the Friends finale was very lackluster. So
I don't even remember if Ross and Rachel getting on a plane. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Who remembers the end? So I actually think, I know everyone will disagree with me, but this stands higher than most of those.
Okay. Katie Beth Austin says, Robin and her therapist broke up when she found out she couldn't have children. He said, it's okay, we'll adopt. And Robin said, no, I don't want to. She doesn't want kids at all. Aunt Robin.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I guess, but I think it was the idea that he still wanted kids and she didn't. She was mourning the loss that she couldn't, but that she still didn't. I always loved that complexity, which seems like a paradox, and yet I actually think it was one of the better writing of the show, that she didn't want kids, but the fact that she knew she couldn't, even if she did, killed her. I loved that. I thought that was great. So that still tracks for me, and the fact that she's marrying a guy with kids, or let's say they get married in 2030, that doesn't bother me at all, because this was, that was a woman who was in her 20s at the time, had a potential career. She's at a very different place in her life, so it didn't bother me. So it's a good point, but I feel like it still tracks for me.
Yeah, maybe, I guess, because she has they're grown-up kids. She doesn't have to do anything. Maybe that's better. And they're really Ted's kids. But why does Robin have so many dogs? Does Robin have like 10 dogs?
I think that was a callback. The team on someone will remember, but there was, I can't remember what it was, but there was something about dogs that I think we were led to. It still made me laugh. Yeah.
Okay.
I like Jess reminded us in the chat room, Roseanne's finale was also pretty bad. I think that whole last season,
they won the lottery,
and oof, that was really tough. Yeah.
All right. Matthew Phelps says, the thing that I think made the ending so divisive is that over the course of forcing the Barney and Robin relationship, they made Robin very unlikable. I watched early How I Met Your Mother recently, and in the first couple seasons, she was so different and much more enjoyable as a character. I wanted Ted to get together with Robin because of early Robin, but I can understand why Barney-fied Robin didn't feel right for Ted for some people. Thoughts? Do you think that the relationship with Barney ended up making us not like Robin? I personally, I don't remember if early in the series if I liked Robin more, but I must have.
It's interesting. I mean, I think that there's total validity to what he's saying because so many people are saying it. I did not have that experience with her. I felt like, is the answer that she should have given up her career so that she could stay married to a guy who wasn't comfortable with her career and he was justified in that being stressful? I don't think so. I think the scene that she had with Lily in the empty apartment was not her in any way being unlikable, that there is no gang anymore. It was completely real, and it was the crushing reality that she's now the single one of the six, or the five, whatever we want to call them. That Barney's just happy hooking up with teens, and so I was very emotionally tied to her. I mean, I got where she was at and was very sad, and her sort of not showing up for the life things I didn't think was unlikable. I thought it was very real that she's kind of avoiding this situation, so I didn't feel that way, but I could see why others did.
Don Ames wants to know, do you think that the ending would have been any better if the mother was introduced earlier on in the show?
Well, or would it have been worse? I mean, the more that we got to know Christina Milioti as the mother, the more we started to go, oh, this is the fairy tale happy ending. So it's a good question. I don't know how you could have made that work. I don't have any answers on that one.
Um, what do you think comes next for Kristen Milioti? You think that she's going to be a star after this? Do you think she ends up getting another TV show, or do you think? I mean, she's from a theater background, right?
Yes, yeah. She's been on other stuff before, but she was the lead in the musical once, most recently on Broadway, and she's been in some, some movies and some TV stuff. Yeah, I mean, this is, absolutely that, we will see her recycled. She'll probably play a forgettable character on a forgettable sitcom. I had written about this on my blog a long time ago. The show that followed How I Met Your Mother was just 6 actors that you've seen in 15 different failed sitcoms sort of being rejuggled into this cast. So I expect that we'll see a lot more of her. I think I think she's a very good actress. I think this was like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or like Kristen Bell in Veronica Mars. This was probably the role for her that she may not be able to get out of its shadow for a little bit. So for her, it actually may be a good thing that she wasn't on the show longer, and that a lot of people had never seen it or won't know her from this, because she won't get pigeonholed. I think it's going to be hard for her to find a role that was this perfect for her. Not as a dig at her, but just as how perfect all worked out.
Rich, you don't want a podcast about FWBL right after this?
It's still on the TV. I'll watch it. Maybe it's good, but as I said in a blog post I wrote a long time ago, when I see a commercial for a new show with 6 actors that I've seen from other shows that I can't remember where, it feels like a repeat I haven't seen. So I'm not looking forward to it.
Okay. How about this question from Carlos V? I thought killing off the mother was fine, as many predicted, and it fit the story, but do you feel like that the audience was cheated, that she didn't get a better send-off? In a finale about friends being there in the big moments, wouldn't that have been a better way to end the show? Do you feel like we should have seen the big moment, I guess, of the mom's funeral?
Well, I actually said that to my wife right after the show, that it was weird when once they were talking about the big moments, I didn't see what was going to happen. But once that started to play out, my head went to, oh, we're going to see them all back together again with Robin for the big moment of the mom's funeral, which would have been emotionally more satisfying, but it would have been such a bummer, and it would have been so sad that I'm not surprised they wouldn't do that.
Yeah. So, Rich, do you feel like this was pretty much a strong finale? Like, what would you have changed, if anything? It feels like you're pretty much on board with everything.
For me, I think I would have taken the last 5 minutes and made that a half hour. I think that would be, again, I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm saying, given my expectations of, for everyone who's watched all 209 episodes of this show, to be surprised that they didn't do the last show well is odd to me, because there's so many things that they did not do well over the years. This is par for the course. So my only thing, I would like to have just seen that last 5 minutes play out over half an hour. I think it would have had more closure, more seeing the funeral, and actually, playing that out so that we would have had the closure of the mom, and then sort of introducing this idea, seeing Ted and Robin again together as friends a year later. Like they talked about, the kids talk about how when she comes over for dinner, it's so obvious. Like, I would rather have seen that, and the nuances of, I'm so sorry that your wife passed away a few years ago and I loved her, but I feel feelings for you. I feel like that could have been an episode or 2 episodes. I don't know how you would have stuck it into the How I Met Your Mother, still show the train scene at the very end, because you would have had to have moved past that. But I think that would have been better. But, for this kind of a show, I'm happy.
Now, what is going to be different about Ted and Robin that was able to be different than Barney and Robin? For instance, if Robin is on this ridiculous, crazy schedule of that she works, God knows how many days a year, is that going to work for Ted?
Well, who knows? I think, but I do like the idea that, I sort of dismiss the idea that, well, they weren't right for each other in 2008, and she wasn't in love with him in 2014, so they obviously can't be right for each other in 2030. I feel like they're at different points in their lives. Ted's a successful architect. Ted has his children, which are probably always going to be his first loves no matter who he ends up marrying next. So, yeah, I think I absolutely buy the idea that while the timing wasn't right and they weren't right in their 20s and early 30s, now that we're seeing them in their 50s, that this is the right time for both of them. So I buy it.
How does Robin have so many dogs if she's so busy?
That's a good point.
Dogs are a lot of work also.
Yeah, there's probably a dog walking staff that we didn't get to see.
Yeah.
Maybe that's with the guy who used to drive them around. Maybe he's now the dog walker.
Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts on How I Met Your Mother before we go ahead and start to wrap this up?
No, only that I wish we had seen more of the kids. Sorry, my dogs are all going crazy.
You're like Robin.
Yeah, Pete was very unhappy with the finale, so he wants everyone to know. He really didn't get his say. Pete, shut up. The show's over. There's nothing left. Yeah, no, I thought, you know what, I think we'll look back on this, and we may not feel the emotional closure of, but I think we'll look back on this a lot more forgiving, and the series will still hold a good place in everybody's heart, I think, once we sort of get over this.
Megan Z has a good question. She wants to know, more than the mother, what does Josh Radnor's career look like? Now, out of everybody associated with the show, of the 5 principals, and Allison Hannigan to a lesser degree, that everybody else has gone on to do bigger things, and Colby Smulders is doing fantastic. We know about Jason
Segel, right?
Jason
right.
Segel, whatever his name is. He's doing fantastic, and Neil Patrick Harris is doing great. But Josh Radnor, who has not, correct me if I'm wrong, has not gotten one other thing.
Well, he was actually just on Mark Maron's podcast this week, as sort of in the timing of this. I mean, he's gotten a few small roles, and he's been able to write and direct his own movies. I think he's done 2 now.
Because nobody else wants him to be in their movies. He has to write his own.
Yeah. Now, and it always made me laugh that the 9 seasons at one point, one of the #1 rated shows on TV for a period, and this guy can't get arrested in Hollywood. Very much, I think it's about the Ted Mosby-ness of him. That Ted was never a super likable character. He was whiny and complainy. So I think there's that. But again, let's be fair. Jason Segel was a movie star before he got cast on the show. Allison Hannigan had also already been on a hit TV series and in a hit movie. What's his name? Barney. Neil Patrick Harris had already been a TV star, even though his career was sort of low. And before the Avengers, Colby Smulders could not get arrested either. We've never seen her, in an Ashton Kutcher romantic comedy. We've never seen her play. She's never been on a plane that Liam Neeson has to save before the bomb goes off or anything. She got a life raft when they threw her Avengers, and she's not that big of a part of the Avengers unless something changes. So I think that they're actually kind of similar. More surprising that Colby Smulders never really went on to do more stuff than the little bit that she's done. But now that the show's done, I think we'll see Josh do something.
Okay. Yukon R says, I think Robin got a dog after a breakup, so showing her with that many dogs at the end means she had many breakups. Rich, are you buying that?
I like it. At least she didn't turn into a cat lady. So if at least she turned into a dog lady, I'm on board. That makes total sense.
Do you feel like that you wish that we would have seen more futuristic things in the future? Because I was sort of let down. Other than Robin's voice-activated TV, which doesn't seem to work right, seems like there's been no advancements in technology in the next 15 years.
It's funny. I had the same thought, but from the opposite, which is I'm very happy that they didn't try to do that, because I think that their schmaltziness of writers would have gotten corny very fast. So I like that the voice-activated video monitor did not work, and then we're out. We move on. Let's not them try to be Mike Judge futurists or something. Pass.
Yeah. I'm just wonder how different, like, if you were to, go back into the year 2000, how different would your daily life look than things in the year 2014?
Yeah, yeah. No, and that's
Somewhat
that.
different.
Yeah,
I guess not that different.
yeah, yeah. Exactly.
Cooler
They could have
phones.
done something about cooler phones, but that's certainly not in their wheelhouse.
Okay.
These guys, the big comic set piece was the high infinity, so I'm not expecting cutting social satire of technology in the future. So, yeah.
All right. All right. Well, Rich, thank you so much for giving us your insight in this emergency coverage of the How I Met Your Mother finale.
It was the breaking news of post-show recaps.
Yes. Yes. Michael Harmstone wants to know, was it a mistake not to have a Bob Saget cameo?
Yes. I don't know. I have no idea how you could have justified that. So creatively, I'm not saying that I'm better, but yes, it was very odd to just have Josh Radnor's voiceover in those last few scenes, which obviously indicated that they were just going to make this transition to Ted. And it went by fast. Someone called it out in the chat room with the gray wig that looked like a high school theater production, the most horrible gray in the hair, cheese. I'm sorry I can't credit whoever said it. It was so brilliant. So horrible. So, yeah, I don't know how you could have justified it, but it definitely felt like he has been a part of this show as much as everyone else. So to not have him in it in some way, or even his voice coming back or something, it was a little bit of a letdown. But I don't know how you could have done it.
Yeah.
Maybe
I
he
don't
could
know.
have played Ted's dad. Had we ever seen Ted's dad? I can't remember.
I was thinking about that myself, and I don't recall.
Yeah, so I don't know.
All right, what are you gonna
Yeah.
do? All right, well, Rich, thank you so much. If you want to hear more from Rich and I, we did our SNL recap last night of the Louis C.K. episode. That's up on postshowrecaps.com right now as well. And then on this upcoming Monday, Rich and I will talk about the next episode of SNL with Anna Kendrick. That will be on Monday afternoon as well. All right, Rich. Anything else? Got any blogs or anything you're working on?
No, I should post some links to some of the stuff that we talked about, some of the old TV stuff that's still pertinent, because I still feel as viscerally about it as I did back when I wrote them.
Yes. Okay. And Rich Tackenberg, you're not on the payroll from Carter and Bays, right? You are not out here to sort of in their PR efforts to soften people up.
That's crazy. That's a crazy idea. I love that you think that, but that's crazy. That's all I'm going to say.
All right, everybody. So lots more to do. We have our Game of Thrones season 3, episode 7 recap coming up later today, and then we'll also, Josh Wigler and I are going to continue our 24 rewatch to get ready for 24 Live Another Day. So we're going to do that back to back at starting at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. So jam-packed day on post-show recaps. Make sure you don't miss an episode. Subscribe to post-show recaps. postshowrecaps.com/iTunes, or subscribe any way you want by clicking the podcast tab on postshowrecaps.com. Can't wait to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. Have a great day, everybody. Talk to you again soon. Bye.
All right.